The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
It's coming.
All these voices. All these voices.
They're mine. They're not yours. You had no right to them when you were alive, and you have no right to them when you're dead. That's what it sounded like. Good, you know who I am. And you know I'm not playing. You're going to let those women go. In Jesus' name, you're going to let those women go.
Is there a demon here watching us right now? Watching us right now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr., and with me, as always, my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
Good evening, misfit sugar ladies, monster lovers, and demon hunters. I fucking love you.
Tonight's episode is going to be a fun one. We're going to be talking about a guy tonight that I frankly became interested and even kind of obsessed with for a little while. I watched a documentary. It was called Grizzly Man. Now, I'm sure most of y'all know, if you're watching on YouTube, you know because you saw the thumbnail. But if you're listening on the radio, I'm sure most of you guys know this guy, or have at least heard of this guy from that documentary. His name was Timothy Treadwell. And this dude had it in his head that he could go out and live with bears. Grizzly bears. Not brown bears, not black bears. Grizzly bears. So that's what he did for like 13 summers. He went and up to Alaska and actually camped right there with the grizzly bears and was like face to face with them, touching them and hanging out with them and talking to them and having a relationship with them in his mind. And he did this for 13 years before it finally caught up with him. He's a fascinating guy. There's a lot to his life. Okay, it wasn't just bears. There's a lot of stuff that led up to that point. So on this episode, I'm going to kind of go into a little bit of a biography on the dude so you can kind of get some background information on him. And then after all that is over, then we'll kind of discuss it a little bit. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and go into the biography section of this, give you a little background information on who this guy was. So Timothy Treadwell was born Timothy Dexter in Long Island, New York on April 29, 1957. And he became widely known for his passionate advocacy for bears and his unorthodox approach to wildlife conservation. His life was documented in the acclaimed documentary Grizzly Man that I spoke about, and it captivated audiences worldwide. And it did, unfortunately and tragically, in the Alaskan wilderness. Treadwell's early life was marked by a deep fascination with nature and with wildlife. He actually had a pet squirrel growing up that he loved very much, and he had a bunch of teddy bears that his mother had gotten him, and those were like his prized possession above everything else. He struggled with personal challenges, including substance abuse and a sense of purposelessness, before finding solace in the wild landscape of Alaska. In the late 80s, Treadwell embarked on a transformative journey to the Alaskan wilderness, where he discovered his life's calling, living among and protecting the region's grizzly bears. It was kind of a natural fit for Treadwell to film his adventures in Alaska, because he kind of had a background in theater and acting. He acted when he was younger, and he actually was a pretty athletic and good-looking guy growing up. He was a swimmer, and he actually got a scholarship for swimming to college. And he ended up getting in with the wrong crowd and partying too much and getting kicked out and losing his scholarship. So he came home and he tried to smoke weed in the house, and his dad put a stop to that. So Treadwell said, screw this, I'm out. So he packed up his stuff and he moved to California to try to be an actor.
He went on a lot of different auditions, and according to Treadwell, he tried out for the role of the bartender in the series Cheers. And that's a very famous sitcom that probably everybody knows. Well, the part that Woody Harrelson played, the bartender, Treadwell got second place. He finished just second to Woody Harrelson, and Woody Harrelson ended up getting the role, but according to Treadwell, it was very, very close. That kind of broke him, and he decided he wasn't going to act anymore, that he was done with that. He was going to go out in the woods and play with the bears. I think he kind of had like a little bit of a psychotic break there. Kind of lost his mind a little bit and decided he was going to go out and play with grizzlies. But that's how he ended up doing the bear thing, is he was an actor and he failed, according to him. I think finishing second to Woody Harrelson is not failing. I mean, the fact that you were that close to getting that role, he could have kept auditioning. He might have got something, But over the course of 13 summers, Treadwell spent extended periods living in Katmai National Park and Preserve, forging intimate connections with the bears and the other wildlife there. He became known for his unorthodox methods, which included approaching the bears without any kind of protective gear and developing personal relationships with individual bears. And he would even give them affectionate little names like Mr. Chocolate and Sergeant Brown. Treadwell's approach to bear conservation was absolutely controversial, drawing criticism from wildlife experts and the park rangers, who warned of the dangers of habituating bears to humans' presence. Despite these concerns, Treadwell remained steadfast in his belief that he could coexist peacefully with the bears and to protect them from harm. He also became very, very paranoid about poachers and people coming to harm the bears, and very confrontational and borderline violent with the park rangers. He went off on multiple explosive tirades on camera about the park rangers and the park service, how they weren't protecting the bears. They were trying to make him give up on the bears and do things he didn't want to do. Like, one of the rules was you could only camp in one spot for 7 days, and then you had to move a certain amount of distance away. I forget what it was, like 100 yards, a mile. I think it was actually a mile. You had to move a mile away from your original camp after 7 days before you could set up camp again. And that rule made it so that he couldn't stay where he wanted to stay with the bears. He had to move completely out of the bay. So he just decided he was going to ignore the rules and do whatever the hell he wanted anyway. And because of that, he wasn't able to actually camp out in the wide open like you're supposed to when you're with bears, so that they can see where you are so you don't surprise them. And he would actually put his camp hidden in the overgrowth so that the Park Service couldn't see him. And it made it much, much more dangerous for him. In addition to his work with bears, Treadwell was also very passionate about environmental conservation and education. He traveled extensively, sharing his experiences and insights through lectures, media appearances, and outreach efforts aimed at raising awareness about the plight of the bears and the importance of preserving their habitat. One of his favorite things to do was to go and teach at schools. He would go to different schools and give little presentations about the bears, show his footage, show his pictures of them, that kind of thing, with the children. And he did that for free. Tragically, Treadwell's life was cut short on October 6, 2003, when he and his girlfriend, Amy Huguenard, were killed by a grizzly bear in the national park. The circumstances surrounding their deaths remain the subject of speculation and debate. Some people attribute the attack to Treadwell's close proximity to the bears and his failure to follow pretty much any established safety protocol. Other people think that he was doing the right thing and that it was just a bad bear that got him. A bear that was desperate, starving, and he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I happen to think it's a mix of the two. He thought of these things as his friends. And just looking at the bears, the way they looked at him on camera, there was nothing there. There was no kinship in their eyes. They didn't look at him as a friend. You know how like a dog will look at you sometimes, and you can see that that dog cares. There wasn't any of that with the bears. It was just cold, impassionate staring at it, you know. But also at that time period, they had been a pretty substantial drought, and the salmon run had dried up, and so the bears resorted to actually to eating their own cubs because there was no salmon. There was swimming at the time for them to eat. So things were desperate for them, and they were very, very hungry. It was very late in the season when he died, so they were getting very close to the point of hibernation. Some of the bears that he knew had actually already went to their winter hibernation ground and were already preparing to hibernate. And the one that actually killed him was not one of his normal bears that he was around all the time. It was one of the bears from off in the plains that had wandered through that he didn't know. So some people say that it was just a strange bear he had no bond with, and it was just a perfect storm of bad situations that led to his death. While Treadwell's methods may have been controversial, his passion for wildlife and his unwavering dedication to his cause have absolutely left an indelible mark on the field of conservation. His story serves as a reminder of the profound connections that exist between humans and the natural world, and the importance of approaching conservation efforts with humility, respect, and a deep appreciation for the complexities of ecosystems. And now that's especially true if the last scenario I talked about was what ended up causing his death. The fact that the ecosystem was disrupted because there was a drought, there wasn't the normal food sources, the bears were hungry, they were desperate, and he stayed too late. You know, normally he would leave by the time he got killed, but he decided to stay. It was actually his last day there. He decided he was going to leave that day, and he died that day. But I think to look at him as simply somebody who cared about animals and the environment and was trying to protect them is kind of not seeing the whole picture. If you watch the Grizzly Man documentary, and especially the Grizzly Man Diaries show, that had like 3 different episodes of all of his other footage that wasn't used, and kind of the stuff that he wrote in his diaries and his thoughts. It's very evident to see that this guy had a screw loose. You know, he wasn't 100% there. He may have been a great guy, may have been a loving guy. He absolutely seemed like it on camera. But I'll give you a great example. There's this one scene where he's walking along the riverbed there, and there's a pile of bear poop, and it's fresh, steaming poop. And he starts touching it with his hands and getting all excited and saying, "Oh my God, look, they left it for me. They left me poop. It came from inside of her. It's from inside of her. I know it may be gross that I'm touching it, but it was just in her, and she left it for me. It's a present for me." Now, this guy thought that a bear pooped on the ground just for him, and that they did it as a present to him to somehow connect him spiritually to the bear in a closer fashion because the poop came from inside of her and he could feel the warmth of the inside of the bear. That's kind of nuts. You know, I'm not trying to cast aspersions on the man, but anybody can look at that and say that's a little loony.
Okay, so some thoughts on Timothy Treadwell. First of all, as a hunter and an outdoorsman myself, okay, I've spent my life out in the woods and the mountains and the swamps. So, I mean, I'm no stranger to this. I've stayed weeks at a time in the wilderness in shelters I've built myself. I've survived just living off what I could hunt and gather without packing in supplies, without having any modern food. Many times I go into those situations with just my knife and a water bottle, and that's it. You know, just like a canteen and my knife, and that's all I have. So I'm no stranger to the wilderness. I'm no stranger to wildlife. I'm no stranger to interactions with dangerous predators. So first of all, let me say, whether he was crazy or not, you got to respect this dude's knowledge and his ability to survive out there with those dangerous bears. I mean, a grizzly bear is nothing to play around with. A grizzly bear will absolutely kill you. you are on the menu when it comes to grizzly bears. If they decide they want to eat you, they're going to eat you. And the only thing that's going to stop them is if you have overwhelming force in the form of modern weaponry. That's all it's going to save you. You're not fighting off a grizzly bear with a knife. You're not going to win a hand-to-hand combat situation with a grizzly. They are bad, bad news. A lot of people that just say this dude was crazy, and I happen to believe that as well. That he had a screw loose a little bit, okay? Because some of the things that he did in those documentaries, I talked about him in the biography section. Some of the things that he did were just kind of loony. They made no sense and they were absolutely loony. But to be able to survive that long in those conditions with those bears meant that he had to have had a pretty substantial baseline of wilderness knowledge, knowledge about the bears, knowledge about interactions with the bears. You don't survive that long by accident. It's not luck that keeps you alive that long. Now, you might go out there for a season and last most of or even all of the season by luck, but you don't do that 13 times in a row without dying, okay? So you gotta give him that much, that the guy knew what the hell he was doing. He was no amateur when it came to survival in the wilderness, and really when it came to the bears. He probably has more or had more knowledge about the behavior and the temperament of bears than anybody in the world. And that's just the truth. I mean, this guy, a lot of people just write him off as a crazy guy, and I don't think that's fair to him. I don't think that's fair to the work that he did. Now, would I recommend doing what he did, going out there and trying to live with grizzlies? Hell no, I wouldn't recommend that. I've been face to face, and I mean face to face with a bear 3 times in my life. All 3 times was a come to Jesus moment. It definitely wasn't a situation where I in any way thought we were friends. There was no human connection between bear and man. It was an animal and me. Okay, I'll tell you those 3 stories real quick, and you can be the judge for yourself. The first time I was out bow hunting, and I was at the bottom of my tree stand, getting ready to climb up, and I heard a hell of a ruckus. And so I stopped and I was quiet, and I got my bow ready because I thought maybe it's a deer coming. And when it came around the rock face, I'd have a shot. It was about maybe 40, 50 yards away from me, something like that. So it wasn't a hard shot to make with a compound bow. It wasn't a gimme, but it wasn't an impossible shot. So I'm standing there with my bow, and I'm waiting because I can hear it coming, whatever it is. But it's making a hell of a lot of noise. So I'm thinking this is either a gigantic buck or even a gigantic doe, but usually bucks make more noise, or this is a bear coming, because this isn't something small. You can tell by the noise it's making that it's substantial. So I'm standing there waiting, and around that rock face comes a gigantic bear. And I thought, well, shit. So I just stood there. Now, I know the smart thing to do would have been to start yelling and making noise so the bear would know I was there and would go the other way, because there was still a little bit of distance in between us. So it wasn't like we were right on top of each other. If I gave him the opportunity, he would go away. Because bears, unless they want to eat you, like a grizzly might want to eat you, it might come towards you. But this was not a grizzly, this was a brown bear. So while it could eat me, and I'm sure in the past has eaten other people, it's not always going to happen. Okay, so if I made enough noise and let him know I was there, he might go away. But standing there looking at this thing, I was in awe of its size and just the majestic nature of the bear. It was a breathtaking experience. And I'm not talking breathtaking because it was fearful, because I didn't have any fear in that moment, which is surprising because you would think that you would, but I didn't. And it wasn't because I was holding a bow. and I thought maybe I could shoot him before he got to me. It wasn't anything like that. It never even crossed my mind to even pull the arrow back. I was just standing there looking at this thing, and it was beautiful. And it noticed me, and it stopped. And we locked eyes, and we just stood there looking at each other. Now, I was at the bottom of my tree stand, and part of my brain said, well, if he starts coming at you, just run up the tree stand real quick, climb up there. But if you've seen bears in the wild, you know that's not going to help you. Them things can climb trees faster than anything, man. They're just right up the tree. They are quick. So being up a tree ain't going to save you. I've seen bears get treed by dogs that have climbed to the tippy top of trees on limbs that would break if I was on them. And I don't know how the hell he got way up there and how he's not falling and the limbs ain't breaking, but bears are master tree climbers. So I knew in the logical part of my brain, I couldn't climb that tree stand. I wasn't going to get away. I would just be trapped. So my plan in my mind was if he did decide to charge me, I was going to use the tree as a shield and kind of keep circling the tree and trying to get a shot at it maybe or something. There's really not a good plan. Now, they tell you you're supposed to lay down and play dead and cover your head, and he'll come and gnaw on you for a while and then go away. But I don't want a bear gnawing on me. That's not my idea of a good time, so I'm fighting that bear if I have to. But I'm going to use the tree as a shield. That's my plan. So anyway, we stand there, and we're just kind of staring at each other's eyes for like 15 minutes. He's not moving, and I'm not moving. And I'm thinking, towards the end of this time, this is crazy. You know, this is nuts. This dude ain't leaving. You know, so he's trying to decide whether I'm food or whether I'm a threat or something. He's trying to make up his mind about something because he's just watching me. And so I just didn't move. I just stood there. You know, still had my bow in my hands, still had the arrow knocked. I just hadn't pulled it back or anything, but I was ready if I needed to be. And I just waited. And he did nothing. He just stood there. And then after about 15 minutes, he just kind of nodded his head and walked away. Went on his way. Walked down through the hollow and disappeared. So that was my first encounter with a bear. That one was awe-inspiring. It was pretty awesome, but it wasn't scary. My second encounter with a bear, I was actually driving. I was a pizza delivery man at the time, and I was driving my car. I had a little bitty Metro. It was a tiny little hatchback car that I barely fit in. And the reason I had it because it was really, really good on gas. And it got like 56 miles a gallon. And, you know, when you're driving all day as your job, that's awesome. You don't have to spend as much on gas. So I'm driving out this back road trying to deliver this pizza, and there's this gigantic black bear in the road. And I stop. And I think, okay, I'll just let him get by, you know. But he's just standing there looking at me, and he don't want to leave. So I get the bright idea, I'm gonna honk my horn. That'll scare him, make him run away. Well, I honked my horn, and he just kind of got a little agitated with me and kind of got a more aggressive stance at me. And I'm like, well, that didn't work. So I decided I'm going to roll my window down a little bit and yell, "Ha, get on out of here, bear." That's what I did. I yelled like that, right? But real, real loud. Well, all that did was piss him off. So then he charges my car. So my thought was, well, he's probably not getting in the car because the doors are locked, and I rolled the window back up real quick because I had power windows. So he's probably not getting in, but I really don't want that big fat bastard jumping on the hood of my tiny little Metro and caving it in and breaking my car. So I put it in reverse and I start going backwards, and he's running now at the car, and I'm driving backwards pretty quickly trying to get away. So I'm going about 30 miles an hour backwards, and this bear is just hauling ass chasing me. And so I get to the end of the road, and I spin it around and start going forwards, and I just punched it and got the hell out of there. But that bear never slowed down. He never stopped chasing me till I sped up to the point where he couldn't keep up anymore. So that was my second encounter with the bear. That one was a little bit frightening because if he could have got onto the vehicle, he would have tried to bust through. You know, and he might have been able to. He might have been able to bust through that windshield. I don't know. He's a big old bear, and that's a little bitty car. But that was encounter number 2. Encounter number 3 was the sketchiest and scariest encounter I've ever had with any wildlife in the woods. This one was bad. I was out hunting, and I actually had my rifle with me. And I'm out hunting, and my rifle was plenty enough to take down a bear. You know, I was out deer hunting. So I would have been good to go if I needed to shoot the bear. But I didn't know the bear was there. See, the problem was I was walking along this ridge, and the mountain was like this, and I was going around and down this other way. So it was like a U shape. And as I walk around that U shape, I walk up on this not Mama Grizzly, but Mama Bear. And she's with her cubs. Now the cubs aren't fresh born because it's hunting season, so they're a little bit bigger, but they're still with her. And she was not happy that I stumbled upon them. And me, I immediately upon seeing him said, "Oh shit," pretty loud because I knew that was bad news. I knew that was not good. I was in big, big trouble because the most dangerous thing you can ever do to a bear is surprise it, especially when it has its cubs. And that's exactly what I had done. I had walked right up on it and I startled the bear, and the bear startled me. So this mama is going to protect her cubs. So she rears up on her hind legs, claws out, mouth, and she proceeds to give a roar that'll make you piss yourself. It was frightening, that roar. Now, in my mind, in that split second, time slowed down. And in my mind, I thought of all the things they tell you you're supposed to do when you encounter a bear. I spoke earlier about it, laying down, covering your head, pretending you're dead. They'll come gnaw on you, bat you around a little bit, and leave you alone. That's what they say. But they're going to do substantial damage. So I don't think that's a good idea. So out of instinct, I realize what I had already done as I'm thinking about this. I realize I'm moving. I hadn't stood there and thought about it like I thought I did. I had actually turned and run immediately. As soon as that bear reared up and roared at me, I took off running. So I'm hauling ass, and this bear is hauling ass behind me. Now, a bear can run 30, 35 miles an hour. They're quick. I can't run 30, 35 miles an hour. The fastest human can't even run that fast. Maybe 10 miles an hour if we're lucky, something. I don't know the exact stat, but we're not very quick. I am hauling ass trying to get away, and that bear is closing in fast. So I go to make a turn, and I slip on the gravel because there's like a loose rock, right? I slip on this loose rock, and I go ass over tea kettle, rolling down a mountain. Boom, 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 boom. Gun gone. I don't know where the hell my gun went. It fell and was rolling too, just bouncing down a mountain. And I'm rolling, and I'm rolling, and I'm rolling. I come down to the bottom, and I slam into this gigantic thorn bush. And I mean, I'm in this thorn bush. I didn't just hit it. I went through it, and I'm inside of it. And I'm surrounded, 360, by all these terrible, terrible thorns. And they're in me, man. They're sticking everywhere. I'm bleeding like a son of a bitch. And this bear stops up at the top where I had fallen down and rolled. Looks down at me, sees my predicament. I guess it figures I ain't going into the damn thorns. That looks like it's painful. So she gives me another roar, right? Another bad roar, just to make sure that I get the message. Then she turns and runs back to her cubs. So I lay in that thorn bush for probably about a half hour. Now, the first 5-10 minutes of that half hour was just sitting there glad to be alive. You know, just amazed that I had survived that. And trying to assess, one, where the hell the bear is. If it's still around where it's going to get me, or if it has moved on. If I'm safe. Two, I'm also trying to assess, can I even move? Can I walk? What's broken? Am I really, really injured? Am I going to die here? Or do I have a chance to make my way out of here and get home safe? So I determined after about a half hour that nothing was broken. I was bruised up and bloodied up pretty good. But no bones were broken that I could tell. I could move everything. Everything worked. Then I had to figure out how the hell I was going to get out of this thorn bush. Because, I mean, I'm stuck in this thing. I got branches sticking all over me. So I start trying to pull off what I can pull off. And I didn't have anything left but my knife. So I took out my knife and I started cutting away at this thorn bush, trying to make a path out. It was slow going, and I re-impaled myself many, many times in the process trying to get out of that damn thing with those thorns. But I finally made my way out of the thorn bush, and I've got thorns all over me. I mean, they're stuck in me all over the place. I'm bleeding like crazy. My clothes are ripped. And I should just go because there's a bear up there that just tried to kill me. So I really shouldn't hang around. But I'm cheap. And I decided that I didn't want to leave without my rifle. So I walked back a little bit up the hill, not all the way to the top, but just a little bit to try to see if I could figure out where the hell my gun went. So I finally found it after about another 10 minutes of looking. I grabbed it, put it back on my shoulder, and started to march out. So it took me about 20 minutes to get back to the truck. And then I drove home. And once I got home, I stood there with a pair of pliers and pulled all the thorns out of my skin. That took a while. And I healed and I survived. But that was my third encounter with a bear in the woods. And that was one that, if it hadn't been for the fact that there was loose rock there and I slipped and fell, I might not be here talking to you today. That was a sketchy, sketchy moment. And it almost got me. I mean, the only thing that saved me was the fact that I fell into that thorn bush. That I rolled down the mountain in that thorn bush, and that bear did not want to go down there after me. But had it chosen to go down there after me, there wasn't nothing I was going to be able to do about it, because all I had left was my knife. And I wasn't fighting it off, not in the state I was in. So I tell you all those stories to emphasize to you how dangerous bears can be. Okay? Now, it was a brown bear and a black bear in these situations, not a grizzly. A grizzly, way worse. Okay? Brown bears and black bears will eat people. They have been known to attack people and eat them, but it's rare. It doesn't happen very often. Grizzlies, like I said, you are on the menu. If you were around them long enough, they will get you. It's just a matter of time. So the fact that this guy survived 13 summers is amazing. And if you watch the documentary, and especially the Grizzly Man Diaries, which is another show they did about him, and that kind of shows his writings in his diaries and footage that didn't get included in the documentary, you get to see that, I mean, he is literally a foot away from these bears a lot of the time. I mean, up close enough to where they can kill him. And there's many times where they start to charge at him and start to make a move at him, and he goes, "Hey, you behave, bear." You know, it's kind of crazy, but the bear kind of looks at him like, "What the hell's wrong with you?" You know, so maybe the bears thought he was crazy, and that's why they left him alone. You know, maybe they thought there was something wrong with him, and they might get sick if they ate him. I don't know. But it is interesting to note that the bear that finally got him was not one of his bears that he was used to, that he hung out with all the time. It was a bear from down in the plains that was making its way to the hibernation grounds. So it was not a bear that he knew, and it was at the very end. And it had been a drought, and the salmon hadn't been running because of the drought. So the bears were very hungry. And they were at the point where they were desperate, even cannibalizing their own cubs. So, as I said in the biography section, it was kind of a perfect storm for this guy. You know, wrong bear, wrong time, wrong circumstances. And he paid the price. You know, and his girlfriend paid the price as well. Now, his girlfriend might have been able to get away if she just would have took off running, because the bear was busy with him. And according to the documentary, he was screaming as the bear was eating him for her to run and to save herself and get out of there. And she didn't do it. She kept screaming at the bear, trying to get the bear off of him. There reaches a certain point, you just got to make a break for it. You got to go. Because if you wait too long and he stops struggling and that bear realizes he's done, it's going to turn on you. And you're not escaping. You're not running away fast enough to get away from that bear. If that bear wants you, it's going to get you. Your only chance is to go early while the bear's distracted. Okay? And she didn't do that. And it kind of sucks because, according to the documentary, their relationship was pretty much over. And she didn't want to be there anymore. And she was kind of done with that dude. And she was tired of the bears. She was scared of them. You know, they scared her. And she could see what he couldn't see. That they weren't his friends, that he had some kind of delusion towards them that they were buddies. But in reality, they weren't, and they scared the hell out of her because she knew that it was going to be a matter of time before something happened. But for whatever reason, she stayed until the end, and it cost her, So my opinion on it is that he had a bit of a delusion towards these bears. He thought they were buddies and they weren't, you know. If you watch the documentary, there's several times where there's sketchy moments, even with the bears that he knows, where you're like, oh, that was close. Especially if you're an outdoor guy that has been around animals and knows their behaviors like me, right? I've seen them up close. I've been out there with them. I've watched them. So there's certain movements they make and certain behaviors that they have that you can tell that it's getting ready to be a very sketchy situation. And there were several moments like that in that documentary that were absolutely sketchy. And I'm very surprised that he did not meet that fate a lot earlier. But he didn't. He stayed out there for a long time and he gained a lot of knowledge and passed on a lot of knowledge about bears, which is kind of cool. You got to realize that some of these guys that go out there and they learn all this stuff, all of us benefit from that knowledge. It's not just watching an interesting documentary or like with the crocodile hunter, Steve Irwin. With Steve Irwin, it was very entertaining to watch him, but we also learned a hell of a lot about the behavior of crocodiles and snakes and all kinds of animals. I myself have utilized techniques that I learned watching Steve Irwin handle snakes when I handle snakes, and it works. What he did works, and I wouldn't know that if it wasn't for him, and for what he did and his contributions not only to knowledge about animals, but he kind of passed on his excitement and his love for animals and made us want to preserve them as well, and it's a magical thing. The saddest part of this whole thing, besides them getting eaten, obviously, is that Timothy Treadwell's whole mission was he wanted to protect and save these bears because he was always worried about poachers coming to get them, and he was trying to protect them. And it's kind of sad that he ended up getting eaten. And he even said that he probably would, that would probably happen to him. But that not to be worried about it if it did, because that's the way he wanted to go, that he was happy with that. But he dedicated his life to saving and protecting these bears, and he ended up being the reason that one of them got shot and killed, because they came out there and they killed that bear that attacked him. They found his body. The guy that came to pick him up, because that was like his last day that he was supposed to be there, and the guy that came in on the plane to pick him up walked in and almost got attacked by the same bear. And he knew what had happened immediately, and he called in reinforcements, and the Rangers and everybody came in and they ended up taking out the bear. And then they found the bodies and all that kind of stuff and destroyed campsite. But he ended up being responsible for that bear getting killed, which he never would have wanted to happen, But in that situation, what do? You got to take that bear out because that bear is dangerous, Now, granted, Treadwell shouldn't have been out there. Not only had he stayed past the time he would have ordinarily stayed, so that was already a mistake. Because you're getting towards the end of the season, the bears are very hungry and they're very desperate to eat before they go into hibernation because their survival depends on them putting up enough fat on their body to survive that hibernation period during the winter. So he was already putting himself in a very risky situation on top of just being out there with the bears. But then the fact that all of those circumstances worked out the way they did, and it was possibly the worst situation you could ever put yourself in, and it's what it was, man. It cost him, But if he would have never been out there, that bear would still be around. Now, we can argue whether that be a good thing or a bad thing. I don't mourn the bear. The hell with the bear, I don't have that same affinity for predators that most people do. Like they're trying to reintroduce wolves to parts of the country. I think that's crazy. They're trying to reintroduce grizzlies to California. What are you, crazy? That thing will eat everybody. People forget that these animals were hunted to the brink of extinction for a reason, because they're dangerous and they hurt people, you know? So you decide it's a good idea, you're going to bring them back and repopulate an area. It's only a matter of time before people lose their lives that don't have to. You know, I don't think it's a good idea at all. And I mean, there'll be people that will definitely argue with me on that. But I don't think it's a good idea at all. I think we could do without most of these predators. You know, yes, they perform a function of thinning the herd of like deer and stuff like that and other animals, but we can fill that gap through hunting. You know, there's enough people that want to hunt that are limited by the seasons and the bag limits. Whereas if you didn't have the predatory animals there to take their share as well, that humans could take a lot more. You know, we could hunt a lot more. And there are enough people out there that want to hunt and that survive by hunting that I don't think it would be a problem. But you don't ever want to see those animals disappear completely, but reintroducing them to areas that they're not at anymore is not smart. I don't think it's wise at all. But it's what they want to do. And there's other people that are avid hunters and outdoors people that disagree vehemently with me on that. They absolutely think it's great that they're being reintroduced because they want to have the chance to go out and see them and to hunt them, you know. But I'm not worried about shooting a wolf or a bear. I don't have any desire to kill a grizzly bear or to take out a wolf, you know. I'm a hunter that I hunt for food. If I don't need the food, I don't kill anything. So I'm the same way with fishing. If I'm not going to eat it, I don't get it, period. You know, I'm not going to go out there and trophy hunt and try to kill something so I can have a bear skin rug or so I can have a wolf skin coat or something. I don't care about that. It's a sacred thing to take a life. When you take that animal's life, that animal gave its life so that you can survive, so that you can eat, and that you can use every bit of that animal you can. You know, people that just hunt for horns or that hunt, take the skin and leave the rest, I can't get down with that, man. Because that is you're taking something's life. Okay, that's a serious thing. And you have to honor that. You have to honor that animal by using what you take. You know, I can't stand it when people kill a deer and take it to the butcher, you know, and get it processed, and then they just throw it in the freezer and they never use it. And it just ends up going bad and they end up throwing it away. Well, you killed that animal for nothing. You know, if you don't like deer meat, what are you doing? Why are you hunting it? You know, it doesn't make any sense. People that go and they go fishing and they just catch fish and throw them back all day, that's kind of rude, man. Imagine you're just hanging out, minding your own business, walking down the street, and a pizza or a cheeseburger comes dangling down. You're like, hey, I'm hungry. Let me have a bite of that. And then all of a sudden a hook's in your mouth and you're yanked up. And then they just throw you back down on the street. That's crazy. Why would you do that? If you're hungry and you want to eat it, cool. I'm not against you killing anything you're going to eat. I don't care what kind of animal it is. I don't care how many of them you got to take to feed yourself and your family. That's fine with me. You know, I grew up hunting. There's been many times in my life when I was younger that if I didn't hunt and fish, I didn't eat. So my very survival depended on my ability to get game and to feed my family. So that's kind of where I stand on hunting and all of it. You know, if you're going to eat it and you're going to use it, I'm cool with it. I got no issues. If you're not, I don't think that's right. You know, now I'm not going to stop you. You know, you're a free individual. You can do whatever the hell you want. I'm not going to stand out there and make sure you don't. But I don't think it's right. And personally, myself, I'm never going to kill something I'm not going to eat. You know, that's just the way it works. If I'm going to take that animal's life, I'm going to honor that life by using everything I can. You know, that's just where I stand. So I'm going to throw it to old boy and see what he thinks about this whole thing. And then I'll be back after he's done to give my final sum up and wrap up and all that, depending on how much time we have. So, old boy, go ahead, brother.
So, you guys, we have a good show for you guys. I know you were listening to James a little bit ago. So, the Grizzly Man. If you guys know who the Crocodile Hunter, I actually want to do a show on the Crocodile Hunter, and that's what we always do. We always promote other shows. It's probably going to come one day, and we can talk about him and his son and his daughter now are running in his footsteps with the crocodiles. But again, the thing is about the Croc Hunter, he didn't get killed by that. He died from a stingray. So this guy didn't, and we'll get to that in a couple minutes. So Timothy moved out to Alaska, started camping out there to get to know the bears out there, the Alaskan grizzlies. And if you guys know where Alaska is, and I know most of you do, there's a lot of bears, grizzlies, and you know how that could go. And brown bears, I think there's other bears there, but he really like grizzlies and Kodiaks. So did this for years, 13 years. And I saw the documentary there's a documentary from 2005 or 6 on Amazon. Check it out when you guys can. It's like an hour and 45 minutes. It was pretty interesting. And I read a lot of other stuff about this guy. He looked like he was kind of out of his mind, not out of insane. He kind of reminded me he's insane. He thought he could talk to these bears, like he knew who they were, and he did. They show him swimming, touching the bears, doing all kinds of stuff. He even had different names for certain bears and all kinds of stuff. He could talk. He thought he could talk to them, and they were talking to him, and he loved it. He'd stay out there, and then he would move his tent every 30 days, but he couldn't get to know the bears that long, because then he would just know them for a month, and for seasons they would leave and go hibernate. And this is his downfall, what happens and I'll talk about that in a little bit, but I'm giving you in general my opinions on this, and I always do, and you know how I fucking think. I think the guy was crazy. I'm sorry, I like animals, and don't get me wrong, I love animals, but I wouldn't go out in the middle of fucking Alaska. One, it isn't just bears you need to worry about. Wolves, fox, you really just fucking starving to death, fucking the elements. There's different bears that you got to worry about, mountain lions, all kinds of stuff. Plus you could starve to death. If it gets too damn cold, you could freeze to death. Alaska is cold. This guy loved doing it. And he was one of these people who saved animals. He loved animals, and he loved bears, especially bears. And he got to the point where he was talking to him, like I said, swimming. He had names for them. And his girlfriend was cool about it, and they were both involved. And he even told her, if I don't come back, I died. You know what happened. I got killed by a bear. He knew the consequences. He talked about it, that he could be killed at any time. But he was absolutely, when you listen to him talk, he knew his stuff about bears. Don't get that wrong. But he thought they would go to the bathroom, and because it went to the bathroom right then, he thought he was connected with this one bear because it just happened. He just thought things like that. And that's just, there's nothing wrong with that. He was very, very earthy person, and there's nothing wrong with that. He loved nature, loved animals, would save animals. And I always have no problem with that. I love animals myself. Just like when you guys talk about, Bigfoot, I would never want anybody to kill Bigfoot or Nestle or any of these animals, because we need them. And I have a total difference of opinion on that. And I don't like when people kill bears anyway. Bears, if they're coming to attack you, I get it. But most of the time, you don't need to kill a bear. And some people like to hunt. And again, I don't have a problem with hunting. There's certain animals I don't care, because there's a population problem. Birds, I get it. There's too many boar in Texas, stuff like that. I get it. Too many elk. And that's why you only have seasons. You don't do it all the time. You only do it so many times, because you don't realize you have too much deer population. It destroys other animals. There's a reason why people hunt. Most people. Don't get me wrong. There's people who like to poach and sell who like to kill animals just for their hide or their head and sell it to whoever they can get money off, Most people hunt because they want the meat, or and they enjoy the hunting. And I've never hunted but one time a long time ago, and it was ducks, but whatever. It was a long time ago, but it was what it was. Didn't bother me. I don't think I killed anything. I think I missed all the time. I was new at it, so I saw ducks getting shot though, and it was a long time ago. But it just, I'm not into hunting. I mean, it would be cool. I would try it. I know James loves hunting, but James is the same way. He kills animals and he eats them. And it was for the meat, and not just to kill them and then take their hide and leave them there. That's something we're totally against. Poachers, that's why I hate poachers. Poachers are assholes and they deserve to go to jail, and I don't care what anybody thinks. That's my opinion. If you're killing animals for absolutely nothing and just to take the skin and make money and leave them there to rot, and then, just, that's something that's been going on for thousands of years, though, and it still goes on, especially in Africa. They kill the elephants just for the tusk and leave the bodies there. I think the gorillas, they kill gorillas for the fur, and I think out of the skull they make ashtrays out of that and the teeth, and that's it. And dolphins, they kill them, they're not supposed to kill dolphins, and some countries don't care and don't have the same laws we do, and they do it anyway. Especially whales. They do it for whales, they make oil out of it. Like the Eskimos, I understand they're allowed to kill, I think, a certain amount, but they use the blubber for oil for their whole time out there, and I don't want to say the indigenous people in Alaska use that for their oils, because if you ever seen some of these places in Alaska, not even Alaska, in Antarctica, they do the same thing. They don't have the natives there, Indians there in Antarctica. They use, or somewhere they use, they use the oil for burning lamps and their machines and stuff like that. That's why people out there are allowed to do it, but they also do it for their food. That's what their main food is. And they feed their animals, their dogs and stuff like that. And they use that for that. And I understand that. That's one thing. And I know you guys, most of you understand that too. They live in the middle of snow where there's not a lot of stores there. If they have one, and they fly stuff there all the time, if it's Alaska or Antarctica or any of these really, really cold places, they use the oil for oil lamps, stuff like that, but a lot of countries just kill them to eat them, and that's it. And exotic animals, they kill, and there's a market in China where they sell exotic animals. They're not supposed to do it, and they try to shut it down all the time, but they reopen them somewhere else. They kill pythons, bats, all kinds of stuff. Illegal fish they're not supposed to be catching, or animals. A lot of China, they're starting to get away from eating dogs, because that's one of their diets out there, and they're trying to make laws to quit doing that. They're trying to make it illegal to do that, and stuff like that. What else is there? There's monkeys, different kind of lizards and insects. They have all kinds of different stuff, even stuff they're not supposed to. I think there's gorilla, all kinds of stuff that gets sent to this exotic market. And people buy stuff and they make it and cook it and eat it. And that's fine, but some of the stuff they do is illegal. It's not allowed to do that. And this is what happens. But getting back to the story, I've always liked bears, so this is a cool story. I like Grizzly Adams. I got the Grizzly Adams beard. Some people, oh, hey, Grizzly Adams, they'll joke around with me. I used to like that show. It was always cool. He was always cool with the Grizzlies. And this wasn't the same thing. This guy was kind of out of it. You can see he's kind of crazy. But hey, he meant well. And what happened to him was very sad, and I'll talk about that in a couple minutes. You have to realize, when you're dealing with animals, they can change on you at any time. Doesn't matter if you've known them for years or 20 years, they could kill you. This happens all the time. Like, I had the pet orangutan, it killed him. Pythons had for 20 years, it kills them at night, or tries to swallow them, or chokes them to death and kills them, the owner. Dogs, same thing. Mastiffs, pit bulls. They'll turn on their owners and kill, or people that come around for years and just something turned them on. Animals altogether, just like what happened with Sigmund and Floyd, not Sigmund and Floyd. He was attacked by one of his tigers because he thought the lady inside, when they do this in Vegas, I've seen it before. You're told not to wear certain stuff and don't make sudden moves because they can sense it. Well, I guess something that she was doing or something she thought it was the female tiger thought it was in danger, and just like grabbed him by like a cub. Well, these things are huge, and it fucking fucked his neck up. So he didn't want the animal killed though, because he said that the animal was doing its natural protection. That's what happened. Well, apparently him and his girlfriend were camping, and they stayed a little longer than they were supposed to. They weren't supposed to, so they hid out more in the forest so they wouldn't get caught. Well, most of the bears he knew went up and hibernated. So Timothy thought, oh, well, even if they're new bears, they'll be all right. Well, some of these bears are starving and they're hungry. Well, one night, bear got too close, and well, guess what happened? They ended up becoming mills and got mauled to death and eaten. And later on, they found the body after they said one of these bears charged the ranger. He had to shoot it 11 times before it died. And it almost got him even after he shot it 11 times. Come to find out, if they killed the bear, they looked around found the campsite, the tent, and they found them teared apart and, other stuff. And they were killed and eaten, most of it. And it's pretty sad because he really did mean well. Him and his girlfriend were good people, but this is what happens sometimes when you mess with nature. Just like the crocodile hunter, he got stung by a stingray. That's a different animal. But even then, he didn't want the stingray to be blamed because it was protecting itself. Their natural thing is to defend themselves. They're not like us. We have to think. They just do it. You got too close. So he did this for a long time, and it still killed him. So remember that, guys. If you're trying to become friends with some of these animals, you could die. It's a very big possibility. Yes, and they don't even have to maul you. They can just be playing, and just their natural comes in and kills you. Or they think you're getting attacked, or you fucking pissed them off that day and they ate you. Or they broke your neck and beat you to death. Like some of these people who own these, the one lady, her friend got her face eaten off by a chimpanzee. And her face was all, like she had to get plastic, still didn't do nothing, but her whole face got eaten. And she knew these animals for 30 years. And they just one day snapped. She yelled at them too many times. There's people I see hitting tigers and stuff, and then eventually the lions or tigers turn on them and kill them or eat them or tear them apart and send them to the hospital with thousands of stitches. You see these idiots that go in the zoos and want to prove a point, and they get killed by tigers. Do you understand tigers are 9 to 10 feet long? No, I don't know if they're 10, but they're like 9, 8 feet long. They're huge. With their tail and everything, they could be. They could kill you. They're huge. They're bigger than us, way bigger than us. They're no joke. Just like lions, they're huge. Bears, grizzlies can get up to 9, 10 feet tall. Kodiak's even bigger. The funny thing is when people mess with polar bears can stand up to 13 feet. They're fucking huge, dude. People don't get how big these fucking animals are. When people start realizing it's their world, not ours, but people are always going to do that. So tell me what you think. I always would like to hear what you have to say, guys. And that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this show. It was something different. All I can say is we'll catch the next show, guys. And I love you and blessed be. And have a good night. Misfit Shirley's and Monster Lovers and Demoners. I fucking love you. And there you go, James. Hitting it off to you again, brother.
Thank you, brother. I want to thank you guys for tuning in and watching again. Everybody on the YouTube channel, thank you very much. I love you guys. Appreciate you. If you're listening on the radio, check out the YouTube channel, youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. That's where everything is. Catch you on the next one. Till we speak to you again. Love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.